Good morning, everyone. I'm Preetha from Techno College of Engineering, Agartala, welcoming you all in 5th technical session of 3rd International Workshop on Advanced Seismology, Seismic Hazards, and Earthquake Engineering, ASSHEE 2021. Now I request Professor J.R. Kayal sir to deliver his lecture on recent large and great earthquakes in the Himalayas, seismotectonic appraisals. Sir is currently former Deputy Director General of Geological Survey of India. He is also CSIR Emeritus Scientist of Jadavpur University. After his retirement from the GSI, he was CSIR Emeritus Professor at Jadavpur University, Kolkata from 2007 to 2011. Adjunct Professor at the IIT ISM Dhanbad from 2007 to 2010 and Visiting Scientist Professor at US Geological Survey, California in 2007. Institute of Physics of the Earth, Moscow from 2007 to 2011 and Novosibirsk University, Siberia from 2012 to 2016. University of Tokyo, Japan in 2008 and Strasbourg University, France in 2011 and Manipur University, Imphal from 2008 to 2010. Institute of Seismic Research, Gandhinagar from 2010 to 2016 and National Institute of Technology, Agartala, India. He has been honored by National Award in 1994 by Government of India. He also received a decennial award in 2010 by Indian Geological Union. I also request Professor Dr. Shima Ghosh, HOD of Civil Engineering Department of NIT Agartala for chairing the session. Now I request Professor J.R. Kayal sir to deliver his speech. Sir, please.
No, I am not muted. Yes, can you? Good morning to you all.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Chairperson, Professor Shima Ghosh, to all participants.
Good morning, sir. Good morning to all of you.
Thank you so much. And it's my great pleasure to be with you in this morning with an interesting topic, that recent large and great earthquakes in the Himalayas. It's seismotectonic appraisal. I have designed this lecture mainly for the graduate, postgraduate, PhD students to give them some idea, some flavor of Himalayan tectonics. So I hope you can see my slides now. Let me go to this. Next slide. But this, so many things are coming. Only full screen. Yes, I think that's fine. Yeah. So this is a very popular slide. All of you are maybe seen this slide. I just want to tell you that how the Indian plate is sitting in a global scenario. As you all know, this is the Pacific plate, most active plate. And this is the Indian plate. It has got two parts. The whole Indian plate is moving from this Carlsberg ridge, spreading ridge, and the continental part of the Indian plate is sitting with the Eurasian plate here, and there is a collision zone here. And the oceanic part of the Indian plate, the Indian oceanic plate, that is subducting along this, this Andaman, Sumatra, Java range. So this is a subduction tectonics of the Indian plate, whereas to the north, the collision tectonics of the Indian plate. So we are getting earthquakes due to collision tectonics, mostly in the Himalaya, and also that tectonic stress is transmitted to the inner part of the plate. We also get some intraplate earthquakes. Whereas this Indian plate, oceanic part of the Indian plate, subducting below Andaman, Sumatra, Java range, that is also intensively active, giving a lot of earthquakes down to, say, 200, 300, 400 kilometer depth. In Java, it is more than that, even 660 kilometer in Java range. So that is the scenario of the Indian plate. And we have got two tsunami zone. One is this zone is marked like this. It is near that Andaman Sumatra zone. The other is in the western part in the Arabian Sea. The Makran trench is there. There is subduction tectonics is there also. The Arabian plate is subducting below this plate, Eurasian plate. So this is the global scenario of how the Indian plate is having both collision tectonics and subduction tectonics. Now, if we go to the next slide, now let us try to see what exactly is happening. As you all know, the Indian plate is separated from the Antarctic plate and it is moving to the north. This plate movement is shown for the last 71 million years, and you can see how it has come today. And it is the present position of the plate is like this, and it is on head-on collision with the Eurasian plate over here. And this is the oceanic part, oceanic trench over here, and this is the oceanic part of the Indian plate that is subducting below these trenches. And whereas we have got, the high Himalaya because of this head-on collision. Now, because of these tectonics, both collision tectonics and subduction tectonics, which is also extended to the Indo-Burma ranges over here, the continental plate of the Indian plate is still dipping below the Burmese arc. So there also we get deeper earthquakes, and that seismic zone or that subduction tectonics, we call it atypical subduction because it's not an ocean range is not there that is closed, but it seems the still dipping Indian plate is still continuing there in the Indo-Burma ranges, and that is connected with the Andaman Sumatra trench subduction zone. And that is why we get huge earthquakes, a lot of earthquakes in the Himalayan collision zone. And this is the western syntaxis of the Himalayan zone, and this is the eastern syntaxis of the Himalayan zone. The whole Himalayan belt, about 2,500 kilometer long Himalayan belt, is under collision tectonics, and we are getting a lot of earthquakes in this Himalayan belt. These Indo-Burma earthquakes are also part of subduction tectonics, which is connected with the Andaman Sumatra subduction zone. Here also we get a lot of earthquakes due to this subduction tectonics here and also down here. And this is the Carlsberg Ridge, where from the plate is separating, spreading. So because of the tension along the spreading ridge, we also get earthquakes. So you can see the plate boundaries are well demarcated by the seismicity. It is the seismicity, understanding by which we understand the plate boundaries. You can see the Indian plate boundary to the north, Indian plate boundary to the east, and also the spreading ridge where from the Indian plate is moving to northeast. Having this regional tectonic setting, now let us see what we get the different large earthquakes in the Indian subcontinent, Indian plate. As I've already discussed that here the earthquakes due to collision tectonics, and there are a lot of large as well as great earthquakes. Large means we need to say that magnitude 7 and above large, and magnitude 8 and above are great earthquakes. So there are some 4 or 5 great earthquakes, in the Himalayan belt, and there are so many large earthquakes. Those are shown by solid circles, and the great earthquakes are shown by stars. I will give you more detail about that. But apart from that, you can see, and this is the Indo-Gangetic plain, as you see. Yesterday, we had a wonderful lecture on the seismic response from the basin structure. So this is the Indo-Gangetic plain, and this is the Indus plain, and this is the peninsular sill area. So the tectonic stress from the Himalayan collision zone is transmitted to also the inner part of the plate. We also get some strong earthquakes, not large earthquakes, but strong earthquakes of magnitude 6 and above, 6 to 6.5 in the intraplate region. And these are mostly shallow earthquakes, and they're of the order of 6 to 6.5 magnitude. For example, 1997 Jabalpur earthquake, or 1993 Kayal earthquake, or 6.2 Koina earthquake, like that. But this part of the Indian plate, though it is in the intraplate region, is western part of the Indian plate, also, experiences large earthquakes and even the great earthquakes. Of course, that great earthquake is now reduced to magnitude 7.8. The 1819 great earthquake was reported from this Kutch area. Then most recently, the 2001 Bhuj earthquake. So this is another high seismicity zone where we experience large and great earthquakes. And this is another zone which is called Narmada Rift Basin. In this basin also we get some strong earthquakes along this Narmada belt. So this is, you can say, southern sill part, and this is northern sill part to the north of Indo-Burma Rift Basin, and this is southern sill part to the south of Indo-Burma Rift Basin. And Kutch earthquakes are also by Rift Basin tectonics. That we call it a Kutch Rift Basin. So this is how the tectonic setting of the intraplate region. We have got some Rift Basin earthquakes, and then we have got typical sill earthquakes to the southern part. Whereas here, you can see the lot of earthquakes in the Northeast India, something like 22 large earthquakes in Northeast India. It's one of the most seismically active zone in the world, which has produced some 22 large earthquakes, and including 2 great earthquakes. If you can see my arrow, this great earthquake in Shillong, 1897, and 1951 great earthquake in this syntaxis zone. We call it syntaxis zone, where the Indo-Burma arc and the Himalayan arc are meeting this place. So this syntaxis zone produced a great earthquake. Shillong Plateau produced a great earthquake. Then there was a great earthquake in 1934 in Bihar-Nepal border. Another great or large earthquake in Kangra. Then there are some, I will come to more details about those earthquakes, great earthquakes. So this is the large earthquake and some strong earthquakes in the interplate region. This is the scenario of the Indian plate. And based on that, is seismic zoning map, and you can see that this part of the country, Northeast India, is in zone 5, which is high risk zone, seismically risk zone. Similarly, the western part of this peninsular sill area, the Bhuj area or Kutch Rift zone, is also seismically very active. Then this is the map shown that how the strain is observed along the Himalayan arc and also along the Indo-Burma zone. So this is the strain rate, which shows quite a high strain rate in this belt, which is definitely the cause of earthquakes. And that all strain is due to the plate movement, the collision tectonics, and the subduction tectonics in the east, and collision tectonics to the north. Now you can note that in last 200 years, say 1819, that our Kutch earthquake 1819 till today, say, we have got some 30 devastating earthquakes, magnitude 6 to 9.3. 9.3 was that of Sumatra earthquake, though, and that we also got the effect. We not only felt severely, but also we had a tremendous tsunami effect. So about 190,000 people were killed and some huge loss of property in India. So that is a global, that is a whole Indian plate scenario. But today we will focus our discussion on the great and large earthquakes in the Himalaya. That is our topic today. We'll try to understand how these earthquakes are occurring in this belt. Broadly, it is because of plate tectonics, but how the source zones, where are the source zones, and how it is behaving, what type of faulting happening, that details we will try to understand. I think it would be mostly for the young scientists and PhD students and master students would be much beneficial. Now, our starting point of running seismological network, was 1897 Shillong earthquake. That was the starting point. We had no instrument to record that earthquake. So then the first instrument was installed in Alipur in Calcutta, sometime in December 1898, then 1899. And then two more stations in 1899. So only 3 stations were working. Then in 1905, Kangra earthquake occurred. Kangra is somewhere in the Western Himalaya, somewhere here. Then the Kangra earthquake occurred. And then some more stations were installed. And by 1930, we had some 15 observatories. And by 1930, Japan maybe some 1,000 instruments, and China and other developed countries, thousands of instruments. But we are very limited with our network, only with some 15 instruments. Then the Kayal earthquake occurred, and we had a tremendous, shaking the whole country and whole global seismologists were shocked with this earthquake, this devastating Kayal earthquake. After that, we started, that happened in 1993. Then we started upgrading our network. And since 1996, we started a broadband seismology, broadband network. And till today, we are having something like 60 observatories, broadband observatories done by, say, DD IMD, now it is NCS, National Center for Seismology. And another 100 observatories are run by different institutes. So in total, say, including the all clusters and other things, in total, I say, let us say about 200 observatories are running now in the country, including the cluster of Awadhya Institute here in Northern Himalaya, including the cluster of some 20-25 instruments in Northeast India. And then now all the stations are upgraded. And so about 200 observatories, broadband observatories, are now working in the country. So that is the scenario. And we are still, I think, long way to go. We are not sufficiently equipped yet. Now, this is our topic where we try to understand these earthquakes, how these earthquakes occur and what are their tectonics. Now, if we look from this west to east, you can see that 1885, then there was another one, 1555. So that is why I say that about 500 years of earthquakes we are trying to, we are having our historical record, whereas our instrumental record hardly about 100 years old, say from 1930 to till today. So the most recently, the 2005 earthquake occurred somewhere further northwest in Muzaffarabad, in Kashmir, in Pakistan, Kashmir. And then we had this great earthquake, or now it is magnitude is reduced by Arabasage and Douglas. Now it is 7.8, the 1905 Kangra earthquake. And then this 1803 earthquake, this is also an old earthquake. We don't have any instrument record. This is now magnitude is revised to 7.7. Then there is a gap area, they say. Then this is the 1934 great earthquake, magnitude revised to 8.2. And then most recently, the Nepal earthquake, 2015, magnitude 7.8. And then we have the Shillong earthquake over here, which is, of course, no more considered as a Himalayan earthquakes. It is a sealed earthquake, intraplate earthquake, and it is not due to the Himalayan, the collision. Of course, the collision tectonics is transmitting the stress, but it's not a typical Himalayan earthquake. It's a intraplate earthquake. And then we have 1950 great earthquake, and the magnitude is revised to MW. MW is a moment magnitude is more stable and more reliable magnitude now, because other scales saturate at that more than 8 magnitude. So MW is now given 8.4. And there was another large earthquake in 1947 over here in the Eastern Himalaya. So these are the earthquakes which we'll try to understand today. And the magnitude, you can see the highest magnitude earthquake in the Himalaya so far is 8.4. And the rupture zones of the order of 150 to 250 kilometer rupture zones. There are so many arguments that Himalaya is capable for a mega earthquake. I think that our observation so far, the Himalaya has produced the maximum magnitude earthquake 8.4, and rupture zone is maximum up to 250 kilometers. So mega earthquake needs thousands of kilometer rupture zone, and for that I think Himalaya does not permit. I will come to that. So anyway, these are the great earthquakes or large earthquakes in the Himalayan belt. Now, I will not go into details about the fault plane solutions over here. There will be a separate lecture by Dr. Debojit Hazarika, I think tomorrow. So I just want to tell you that how the faulting causes different types of we call it fault plane solutions, and we represent it by beach balls. So this is when the thrust, when the compressional stress is dominant, we get thrust fault mechanism of earthquakes. And when the tensional stress is dominant, we get normal faulting. And when both the stress are horizontal and the shear stress is dominant, we get strike slip faulting. So these are the beach ball presentation. We also can find out determine the fault plane solution by waveform inversion. These are all mostly earlier the technique was plotting of the fast motion of the P wave, and we would come out with the fault plane solution. But now the modern with the digital instruments, digital seismograph, we can also do the fault plane solution by waveform inversion. So details of these fault plane solutions will be a lecture given by Dr. Hazarika. So I just want to tell you that in Western Himalaya, say this is our recent investigations from GSI. In the Western Himalaya, this is one is Uttarkashi earthquake 1991, another one is 1993, Chamoli earthquake in the Garhwal Himalaya. So our recent study with the temporary network in this at the site, we find that in the Western Himalaya earthquakes occur by thrust mechanism. And normally we try to interpret the fault plane, either these two nodal plane which is separating this black compressional zone. So this northern dipping plane is the likely fault plane. We'll come to that interpretation afterwards. So just I want to tell you that the western part we are getting thrust faulting earthquakes, whereas in the eastern part of the Himalaya, we are getting strike slip faulting earthquakes. You can see the Sikkim earthquake, this one Sikkim earthquake, this one Bhutan earthquake, 2011 Bhutan, 2009 Bhutan, 2011 Sikkim, and 1950 Assam earthquake also by strike slip. And we'll talk about this Shillong earthquake later. And this 1988, that Bihar-Nepal earthquake also by strike slip faulting. And 1934 also with some strike slip component. So what I want to convey you is that Himalaya is a thrust zone, and thrust faulting earthquakes are mostly found But in the eastern part of the Himalaya, we get, also normal, also steep faulting. So now this is the this is the conceptual model came out from this observation. This is was given by Ni and Barajangi. This is the Seismotectonic Map of the Himalaya, whole Himalaya region. This shows that all along the Himalaya, 2,500 meter long Himalayan belt, this is the contact zone of the Indian plate and the Eurasian plate. So these are the ophiolites, the Indus futures thrust zone. So this is the contact of the two plates. There was sea before, Tethys Sea. Then when the two continents, on head-on collision some 60 million years ago, that suture zone produced, that oceanic basalt came out on the surface. So this is a geological evidences of the collision tectonics now, that these two plates are meeting here. And then subsequent this collision has given us a lot of parallel thrust faulting zone like MCT over here, main central thrust, then MBT, main boundary thrust, and then further south of MBT, we call it MFT, main frontal thrust. That was in later. So now the earthquakes between the MCT and MBT is called main Himalayan seismic belt earthquakes. And these are the earthquakes to the north of that zone. They are mostly in Tibetan Plateau, and they are mostly of normal fault. But you see this earthquakes in the Himalayan belt, that is between MCT and MT, are mostly thrust faulting. I have shown you the symbol. So these are all thrust faulting. And if you notice, you can see that this nodal plane, which is dipping to the north, is our interpreted fault plane. I will explain that why. So we are getting mostly thrust faulting, but with some exception of normal faulting and stochastic fault. So this was published by Ni and Barajangi in 1984. So based on this global data and also geological and geophysical data, Shiver gave a seismotectonic model of the Himalaya. I will just take 1 minute break because the power I did not put on. Just 1 minute. Sorry about that. So Shiver gave a model. Let us try to understand this model. He said that we have got the Indo-Gangetic plain, as you have already heard the lecture. So Indo-Gangetic plain, then the Indian basement is below that Indo-Gangetic sediments, which is of the order of up to 6 kilometers, as you learned yesterday from Dr. Professor Hugan's lecture. So that Indian basement is very shallow here in the Indo-Gangetic plain, say up to 5-6 kilometers. Then it is in the 4D region, it is more, that basin structure he has shown. Then it is that Indian plate basement, we call it plane of detachment. It is also called MHT, main Himalayan thrust, MHT, or plane of detachment. So that Indian interface between the sedimentary wedge of Himalaya and the Indian basement, that interface is called plane of detachment, or MHT, main Himalayan thrust. And this MBT, as I've already shown you in the earlier map, this MBT and MCT are all ending on the plane of detachment. And then this plane of detachment, there is a ramp type of structure, and this is the Tethyan slab, which is overriding on this plane of detachment or this interface. So this is the collision zone, and lot of thrust faults are developed over here, and this is the main Himalayan thrust or plane of detachment. And it is in this model, it is said by Shiba that all earthquakes are above the plane of detachment, means they are all shallow, down to say below MCT is about 20 kilometer or 25 kilometer. That is depth of the plane of detachment or MHT. And below MBT, it may be further less, maybe 15 kilometer or 12 kilometer. And further you go to the south in the Gangetic Basin, it is 3 to 6 kilometers. So that is what is the model. And earthquakes are all shallow. And this is a schematic, block is showing how the Indian plate is gently dipping and the Himalaya has come up. And this is the elevation of the Himalaya is shown. So with this model, also later on the digital data, digital instruments have come in India, and we have done a lot of study to see the Himalayan sections, particularly by NGRI group. And there are many authors who have worked here, and I have given the references. So you can see that how the plane of detachment is demarcated by the by the reflector. This is the Moho. Moho is how reflected below Himalaya, and this is where they have also imaged the plane of detachment or the MHT and also the Moho. So in different sections A, B, and B, and C dot. And here in the Western Himalaya, you can see it's more complex. Here, both the plates are converging, and here the tectonics is more complicated if you go further west. So this is what is also observed by by the seismological investigations. The model fairly, I think, works, and that we have also. Before that, that model, let us see that now we will try to understand this 2005 earthquake that occurred in Muzaffarabad. You all might have seen in the news, this type of destruction happened by the Muzaffarabad. This is in the extreme west or northwest of the Himalayan, almost in the syntaxis zone. And this is the ground rupture. And that earthquake occurred at a shallow depth and also by thrust faulting. And the model given by Mona Lisa et al., they are from Pakistan, seismologists. They have given this model that this is the Indian plate, how it is dipping, and then they call it Indus Pakistan seismic zone, IKSZ. So that seismic zone has generated this shallow 10 kilometer depth, this 2005 earthquake. So that actually made a devastation because it's 7.6 or 7.7 earthquake, and at a shallow depth that caused devastation. And this is the rupture zone of this earthquake, 2005 earthquake. And this is the rupture zone of the 1555 earthquake. I think this is as I said, 500 years of data. So this is, I think, the earliest earthquake that occurred. And that time we had no instrument from geological investigations. We found this type of evidences. So, and this is the 1905 rupture zone. So as we go further to the northwest, the tectonics is more complicated. So I would say that Himalayan earthquakes are not unique. They are having, in all unique tectonic environments they occur. And of course, the tectonic species, because of the collision tectonics, is thrust faulting earthquakes, but in a more complicated tectonic zone, which is called IKSZ. And this is the aftershocks, and this is the intensity map was published by one Indian geologist from GSI. So this is information about the 2005 earthquake. There are a lot of publications. You can see it. Now, 1991 or I think this is 19 Chamoli earthquake. 1999 Chamoli earthquake gave us a good opportunity to understand the active fault for this Chamoli earthquake. So we immediately came with the portable stations and tried to investigate the aftershocks. But Wadia Institute had a permanent network. Some 8 or 9 stations were there. And this is the permanent network data And this is the main shock, and you can see that it has occurred with thrust faulting. And this nodal plane, which is dipping to the north, this nodal plane is the likely fault plane. So why I'm saying that? Because it has occurred, as per the model, it has occurred on the plane of detachment, or that MAC, and this is north dipping, gentle dipping, north dipping plane, and this nodal plane is interpreted to the fault plane. So that is how we try to interpret with the known tectonics or the known active fault there. So now you can see, if we when we plotted these earthquakes, main shock and the aftershocks recorded by this permanent network, because we were led by 2-3 days to reach here and to establish a temporary network and record more smaller earthquakes we have recorded also. So this model is almost giving the agreeing with the model given by Seabar et al. That earthquakes are on the MHT, or on the plane of detachment. They are shallow earthquakes down to 20-25 kilometers, and they occur in between MCT and MBT. You can see that this is the MCT, main central thrust is going like this, but there are so many other thrust zones, North Almora and other things, South Almora, and this is the MBT. So there are many local thrust fault zones, but the main MCT and MBT are like this. So this is MBT and this is MCT. So when you plot, you can see that the earthquakes are all to the south of MBT. So you can see on this map that they are on the MBT, but when you plot the sections, you can see that possibly some fault zone to the south of MCT was the positive fault to generate these earthquakes. Now, to do that, we did a temporary network investigations, and we found that this is the main shock solution. This is the aftershock solutions to the to the north, and to the south. The aftershocks are showing a different fault mechanism. We also did a seismic tomography. We could image the MCT and MBT. These are the two main fault zones, and the earthquakes occur all main shock and aftershocks in between these two fault zones, which we call this main Himalayan main seismic belt. So what I want to convey you is that our very close network, temporary network investigations also shows that the Garhwal Himalaya, Western Himalaya earthquakes are by thrust faulting, and they are above the plane of detachment. And some, this is thrust faulting with strike slip component. And of course, there is local faults and other things. So aftershocks can be of different types of faulting mechanism. But it's dominated by thrust faulting with some strike slip component. So they are mostly thrust faulting and shallow earthquakes. And our seismic tomography also imaged the two fault zones as MCT and MBT. But which was the active fault here? That Alagnanda fault was investigated by GSI. This Alagnanda river was a fault, and this fault actually is coming over here. This Alagnanda fault, which is also parallel to the MBT and MCT, and at the end of the fault, the main shock occurred. So there are, we can also find out the local active faults by this temporary network, though it's within the main Himalayan seismic belt, but we interpreted that this earthquake occurred on the plane of detachment, and Alagnanda fault was triggered to generate the aftershocks. Now let us try to understand the 1905 Kangra earthquake. It is also in the Western Himalaya, means just further west of say Chamoli earthquake. So that earthquake is very interesting. This earthquake has given two high intensity zone, isoseismal zone. One is in Kangra. Initially, its magnitude was given 8.0 in earlier literature. Now it is given 7.8. So, but this earthquake caused two, isoseismal zone of intensity 7 to 8. This, of course, in Kangra, it was of the order of 8 to 9. And this was the devastation. So the Middle Miss was first from GSI. He was the first person to investigate the earthquake. And he gave from their macroseismic data, he gave macroseismic means the damage data. They have their own, developed their own empirical, equations and found out that the depth of this earthquake could be of the order of 50 kilometers. But later, Molnar and Deng, because since that time we had no instruments, much instrument. So Indian instruments were not there. So depth was not well estimated. It was only global network and that to few stations. But later on, global data were taken up and Molnar and Deng gave its depth of the order of 15 kilometers. Now, most recently, this analog data of the earlier, records of this, in that time, global records, Susan Hoff of USGS, she talked about two earthquakes, 7.8 and 7.3 or 7.6, something like that. Two earthquakes, and they occurred at depth of about 30 kilometers. So you can see our lot of doubts and a lot of arguments because we had no instrument that time. So this is the published report, and this is of course very recently, Susan Hoff. Then myself and Bhattacharya of IMD. IMD had a network, almost semi-permanent network for that Salal Dam project. So that network data for a couple of years, some 10 years data we studied. And we found that these are the micro earthquakes. This is the main shock. They are not aftershocks, they are all recent earthquakes. Since 90s, 80s or so, this network was run. So these recent data shows us a cluster of earthquakes over here and 1905 earthquake position over here. When we do the sections of these earthquakes, this is one of the very authentic or reliable investigation that you can take the section and you can see how the earthquake is behaving at depth. We can see that earthquakes are, this is the so-called plane of detachment or MHT. And earthquakes are mostly, say 70% earthquakes are mostly above the plane of detachment. But there is a source zone deeper to that, a mantle depth of the order of say 40-45 kilometers. So there is a cluster of earthquakes, and this is MCT over here. As I said, MCT and MBT is this in between is called main Himalayan seismic belt. To the south of MBT, there are local fault, and this is called, I think, I forgot the name, Jalamukhi fault. Yes. Jalamukhi fault is there to the south of MBT. So examining these earthquakes, we find that there is a deeper, cluster of earthquakes and source zone. And we, argued that this could be also from this, because these earthquakes occur at the south of MBT. And south of MBT, the earthquake would be from this source zone. If it is on the plane of detachment, its depth would be of the order of 10 to 15 at the MBT zone, 10 to 12 or 10 to 15, but the depth is 40 kilometers and 30 kilometers. Of course, there is one that is given. So this is, of course, a debatable topic, and we prefer that this could be from the deeper source zone, not a plane of detachment earthquake. Then came the 1934 earthquake. We examined this earthquake. This earthquake occurred at the Indo-Nepal border, and this was very detailed survey was made by GSI. This is the intensity map, and they found liquefaction to the south of, it is in Bihar actually. That is why it's called Bihar-Nepal earthquake. So maximum intensity went up to 10 or 11, and there's total liquefaction in this, in this mesoseismal zone. Then this is the epicenter was given by the GSI report. And Kathmandu, they had some, this is Kathmandu. If you can see my arrow, this is Kathmandu to the north. They had some damage over here also, but maximum damage and high intensity zone was in India. And different depths are given for this earthquake, right from 40 kilometer to 25 kilometer, then 35 kilometer and 35 kilometer. And these are all, latest literature, 35 kilometer and 40 kilometer by, I think by Richter or in GSI report, yes, 40 kilometer. And Richter depth 25 kilometers. So there are a lot of arguments, a lot of doubts about the depth of this earthquake, say from 25 to 40 kilometer depth. Then I found when I was involved in this Himalayan earthquake research investigation, then I found a publication by Monsalve. That was a turning point when I started thinking about this Himalayan tectonic model. This network was by Indo-French collaboration in Nepal. And a lot of earthquakes are, as you can see, they are all digital network and well, located earthquakes, and very precisely these earthquakes are studied. And Monsalve published in JGR in 2006. And he gave this type of model that this is the plane of detachment below Nepal, below that, 1934 earthquake. This is a Nepal earthquakes, but there is a deeper seismic source zone over here, which is again south of MBT. This is MCT, this is MBT, and this is MFT. So to the south of MBT, there is a deeper source zone. And most, I was totally, convinced by the 1988 earthquake location, because by that time, India has got a lot of, instruments and also global network. The global network has come in 1964. So the 1988 earthquake was very well located by many networks, global network, Japan network, Indian network, and its depth was given at a depth of 50 to 55 kilometers. Over here, if you can see my arrow, is 1988 earthquake. So we argued that this 1934 earthquake, if it is to the south of MBT, it could be from this deeper seismic source zone, where 1988 earthquake occurred, and this Monsalve's investigations by the digital network in this area also shows a cluster of earthquakes to the south of MBT. So there is a deeper source zone to the south of MBT, and that could be the 1934 earthquake source zone. Whereas the 2015 earthquake, Nepal earthquake, that was well estimated, epicenter and depth is in this cluster zone. I will come to that. So again, I raised a doubt that this 1934 earthquake source zone could be deeper, not on the, because on the south of MBT, the earthquake source zone would be of the order of 10 to 12 kilometers, and that will be not a sufficient cluster source for the accumulating stress. So for greater earthquake, maybe this deeper source zone was that. Anyway, there is an argument on that. But Sapkota from Nepal Geological Survey, I suppose, and he recently he has published that this earthquake, 1934 earthquake, was on the plane of detachment in Kathmandu. That is what they are thought. So there is a debate on this. Now let us try to understand this Nepal earthquake, the Eastern Himalaya earthquakes. Now I have told you this Nepal earthquake, 2015 Nepal and 2015 Nepal, both the earthquakes are typical thrust faulting, and they could be on the, they are not could be, they are on the plane of detachment. But this 1934 earthquake, this one, this red star, which is at the MBT or south of MBT, this earthquake is not typical thrust faulting. This has got, some, this north dipping fault is something near vertical. So this cannot be a typical MST. MST is gentle dip, something like 10 to 12 degrees, it's like this. But this dip is much more. So this is strike slip component, and the very well estimated, these are all global CMT solutions, global center solution, very level solutions. And this is 1988 Bihar-Nepal earthquake, which I just now told you, the deeper depth. And also, so GSI believes that this earthquake, both the 1934 and 1990 earthquake, caused by some transverse structure, which has given the strike slip faulting earthquakes, both the 1988 and 1934. Now let us come to here. Now, this earthquake I will discuss later. Last slide. This is 1897 Shillong earthquake, but this is no more a Himalayan earthquake. So next Himalayan earthquake is 2011. What is that? This one, the Sikkim Himalaya earthquake. The Sikkim, you can see that Sikkim Himalaya is a very well estimated depth, well estimated fault plane solution. This is the Sikkim Himalaya earthquake, and a strike slip earthquake, not a typical that of Himalayan earthquakes like thrust faulting on the MHT. So this is a strike slip. So no doubt about that. It's a different mechanism. I'll show you that. This I will take up later, the 1897, and now this is Bhutan earthquake. Bhutan earthquake, we also see not a typical thrust faulting earthquake like that of Nepal or say further to the west. This is also strike slip component. And most recently, if you can see my arrow, this Assam earthquake 2021, this also by strike slip. Of course, this is a different mechanism. The Kofili fault is a gigantic strike slip faulting fault in the Assam Valley. So these Kofili fault is generating earthquakes by strike slip faulting. Similarly, this Sikkim earthquake is also by strike slip mechanism on the Tista fault. I will show you that. So again, further to the east in the syntaxis zone, the 1950 earthquake is also by strike slip. And this is of course different mechanism. I will show you that. That is, you can see that there is a transform fault which is connecting over here, and there is a crustal flow. So this earthquake is most likely occurred by strike slip mechanism. So this is a Nepal earthquake. I think we don't have much time. So I will now want to tell you that these are the two Nepal earthquakes which occur, and these are on the plane of detachment. That model fits fairly well. But we have done some tomography work using this regional sensitivity over here, global catalog data. This we did with Kaulakov of Muzaffarabad University in Russia, Indo-Russian collaboration. And we found that these earthquakes are this is the velocity structure at a depth of 35 kilometers. These earthquakes occur in a heterogeneous structure, and that more depth is crustal thickness is shallow here, and that gravity also shows that there is a transverse structure which in the epicenter zone of the earthquake. So what I want to tell you that there are many transverse structures across the Himalaya, like Hyderabad Ridge, like Mungesar Ridge or Tista Fault and the Kofili Fault. There are so many transverse structures. So this is what about the gravity and tomography and the crustal thickness give us the information that this Nepal earthquake is a thrust faulting earthquake and in a thinner crust zone, and where a transverse structure is also evident. Sikkim earthquake, I think, is a very bright example of strike slip mechanism earthquakes in the Eastern Himalaya, where you can see this is the Sikkim earthquake, 2011 Sikkim earthquake, and this is the Tista transverse structure. Tista river is a geomorphological evidence of a Tista fault, or we call it Tista fault, no more a Tista lineament. In the earlier literature, it's called Tista lineament. We call it a fault because this is the fault which caused this Sikkim earthquake, and there are also past earthquakes which are also by strike slip mechanism. This is past 1988 or so, or 1980. So when we examine the section of this earthquake, we found that all the earthquakes in below Sikkim Himalaya are deeper. They're not above. This is a plane of detachment. They are not typical plane of detachment earthquakes. They're all deeper earthquakes down to mantle depth up to 45 kilometers. So this is vertical structure below Sikkim Himalaya, and a transverse structure, a transverse a vertical fault and its transverse structure is causing this, by strike slip motion, these earthquakes are happening. So, and this is the data by the micro network run by NGRI, that Hazarika and Kumar, Pinky Hazarika and Kumar, he is a PhD student. They published in BSSA. They also, they had semi-permanent network in Sikkim that time. They also recorded these earthquakes and found that there is a vertical structure below this Sikkim Himalaya at the epicenter zone of the 2011 Sikkim earthquake. So There's no doubt about the tri-slip mechanism earthquakes and very well located earthquakes in the Sikkim Himalaya. They are different from the MHT or so-called Himalayan thrust earthquakes. That is it. Now, as I said, 1897 earthquake, yes, this is a, there was no instrument, no fault plan solution was made. And Oldham made this, intensity map, and it was a type of high intensity zone of the order of 10 to 11 intensity. And this was felt far away, around to, 500 or 800 kilometers away. It was well felt. And he also found that the boulders were thrown, and he gave a, that the ground must be of 1 G, otherwise the boulder cannot be thrown to the sky. So that was his very good report, and very detailed report, I think, and it's a Bible for seismology actually. So this is his observation, and then Wilhelm came up with a focal mechanism of this earthquake, and this is the earthquake 1897. He gave a model of pop-up tectonics model. I will not go into details of this model and our observation. This is another topic, but I want to say you that this earthquake is a great earthquake. 8.1 magnitude is now revised to 8.1. It's a great earthquake, and it is not a Himalayan earthquake. It is a Shillong, sill area, Shillong Plateau earthquake, and the model is that Shillong Plateau is rising up. There's no doubt about that from GPS observation, and that popping up of Shillong Plateau has caused this earthquake by reverse faulting. So let us up to this. We understand that Shillong Plateau earthquake is not a Himalayan earthquake. It's a still earthquake by pop-up tectonics. But the Populi fault, another transverse structure like Tista fault, Populi fault is a long fault, and that is causing earthquake by strike-slip faulting. And including even the Manipur earthquake also, I suppose, we prefer the strike-slip faulting mechanism of this Manipur earthquake. So it's a gigantic Populi fault, which is causing earthquakes, down to, this Imphal, this earthquake, and this recent Assam earthquake, and there are previous earthquake also all along this, that 1869 and 1942, large earthquakes in this Populi fault. So Populi fault is another big earthquake source zone, large earthquake source zone in Northeast India, including the Shillong Plateau pop-up tectonics source zone. Now, I think this is my last slide maybe. So this is the 1950 great earthquake, and that is the largest Himalayan earthquake we have observed, with revised magnitude MW 8.4. And this earthquake, first solution was given that it could be thrust faulting based on fast motion data. Chen and Molnar gave a solution. It could be thrust faulting, it could be strike-slip faulting. Then digitizing the seismogram, then the Ben Menheim, they have given the GCMT, the global centroid moment tensor solution, which is more reliable or more stable. They found it is strike-slip faulting. So this earthquake is also not a typical MHT or typical planar detachment earthquake. This earthquake is also by strike-slip mechanism, and it is also deeper depth of the order of something 35 or 40 kilometers. So, and there is a crustal flow. The GPS data shows there is a crustal flow. So this strike-slip movement in the crust is very much evident from the GPS data. So we believe that this earthquake is not a typical planar detachment earthquake. It is rather a strike-slip mechanism earthquake. And the Holt and others has shown that there are so many strike-slip earthquakes in the syntactic zone. As you go further to the west, these earthquakes are thrust faulting, but these are all strike-slip faulting earthquakes. So this syntactic zone is generating earthquakes and generating the largest or greatest earthquake in the Himalaya by, I suppose, by strike-slip faulting. Of course, there is a debate on that. And this is the intensity map in the Indian part by Tandon and others. There is a beach collapse. I think I have given you some glimpse of different earthquake source processes in the Himalaya. And I can just summarize like this, that 1905 Kangra earthquake, now the revised magnitude 7.8 could be a lower crustal 30 to 40 kilometer depth event to the south of MBT. and the Jalamukhi thrust could be the local thrust, Jalamukhi thrust could be the positive fault. In 1934 great Bihar-Nepal earthquake, revised magnitude 8.2, could be generated from the same deeper source zone that is at a depth of 40 to 50 kilometers of the 1988 event, because 1988 event is a very well looked at event and very well studied. And that's 1988 strong earthquake and to the south of MBT. May not be a MHT event. So neither Kangra nor this one. 2015 Nepal earthquake, 7.8 and 7.3, however, occurred on the MHT by thrust mechanism. This is typical on the Himalayan tectonic model it fits. 1897 Great Shillong earthquake is no more considered as a Himalayan earthquake. It's an interplate earthquake, and it is explained by pop-up tectonics of the plateau. 1950 Great Assam earthquake, 8.4, occurred at the strike-slip for systems in the Himalayan eastern syntax zone and not be a MHT event. The 2011 Sikkim earthquake, 6.9, is much deeper. It's a well-estimated depth, 50 kilometers. It's not a MHT. MHT is a depth of 22 kilometers. So it is caused by strike-slip mechanism also, and by the Tista, transverse fault, we cut across the Himalaya, like our belief. 2009 Bhutan Himalaya earthquake. This is of course a Himalayan earthquake. 2009 Himalayan earthquake, magnitude 6.0 in Bhutan, also may be caused by Kopili fault by transverse tectonics, like that of the most recent 2021 Assam earthquake, Assam 4D earthquake, magnitude 6.1, very recently in this year. So these are the, you could say, brief of the Himalayan earthquakes, what we understand till today. Thank you so much for your questions. Thank you so much. I'll welcome any questions. Yes.
Thank you, sir. This was a nice lecture, and we are grateful that during last 6 to 7 years, you are having with us, and our students are enjoying your lecture. So today's lecture is mainly due to the large and great earthquake in Himalayan region. What are the reasons for those earthquakes and how those earthquakes are occurring? All these are discussed very nicely by our respected Professor Kayal. So if any question from the students and participants, and questions can be taken care of by the sir. Over to Pritha. Pritha, please.
I don't know why I am not visible. My camera is on. Maybe something happened. Let me join again, I think.
Pritha?
Yes, ma'am.
Pritha, if any question from the participants, and please.
Yes, ma'am. There are a few questions. Northeastern side is more prone to earthquake. Can interconnection of these areas with the other part, which are said to be?
Pritha, wait just a minute. Sir disconnected. Sir will connect once again. Wait just a minute. you please.
Sorry.
Sir.
Yeah,
So
please.
there are few questions.
Yes.
Why are getting most of the earthquakes in Himalayan region at the plane of detachment?
Yes, that is that is the collision zone, because plane of detachment is the interface and on which the Tibetan plate is overriding. So that is the zone where you are having the maximum stress because of the collision. So it is not difficult to understand that two plates are on head-on collision, and the one plate, that Indian plate, is gently, dipping, and the Tethyan slab, say, Eurasian plate or Tethyan slab, is overriding. So, the main interaction between the two plates is on the plane of detachment. So that is which is experiencing a lot of stress. So plane of detachment, or the MHT they call it, main Himalayan thrust, that is the zone. And that zone, on that zone, the MHT, the MCT, main boundary thrust, main central thrust, MCT and MBT are ending because of this interface. The fault is ending on that. So that intersection between the MBT and plane of detachment, those are the zones for accumulation of stress. So yes, MHT, plane of detachment, is source zone for Himalayan earthquakes particularly in the western Himalaya. But as you come to the eastern Himalaya, the fault zone, there are transverse faults like Kopuli fault, like Tista fault, like other transverse structures like Munger Sahasaris. They are across the Himalayan trend. So those are again, that is why I told you in the beginning that it is unlikely that Himalaya will have a long rupture to generate a mega earthquake of magnitude 9, because these structures are obstructing the long rupture along the Himalaya. So maximum rupture we get up to 250 kilometer long. So I think 8.4 is the maximum magnitude earthquake we get in the Himalaya. That is one point. The other point is that, yes, the MHT, or plane of detachment, is the interface where the two plates are colliding, and they are accumulating stress to generate earthquakes.
Thank you, sir. A question from Saptashwara Guha. Sir, as northeastern side is more prone to earthquake, can interconnection of these areas with the other part which are safe will be helpful?
Please tell me again, not followed.
As northeastern side is more prone to earthquake, can interconnection of these areas with the other part which are safe will be helpful?
I don't know what you mean by helpful. What I am to say, I think why it is more active, I am telling you, because the whole Northeast India is buttressed between two tectonic arms. To the north, the Himalayan arc, and to the east, Indo-Burma arc. So to the east, there is subduction tectonics, and to the north, there is a collision tectonics. So whole Northeast East region is jawed between these two tectonic arms. Well, so in the north, Himalayan collision, and to the east, subduction. So these are the two tectonic stresses, are generating earthquakes in whole Northeast India. So whole Northeast India region is buttressed between these two tectonic arms. So that is why the whole Northeast India is so seismically active. Now, what is the question, whether it will be helpful? I could not understand that. If you repeat, or he can explain what he wants to mean by helpful. What is helpful? I would say, because of these two tectonic arms, pressing this whole region, so region is very active. And in between, there are so many faults, like Kopili fault, like Shillong Plateau source zone, like Kopili fault source zone. And in addition to the collision zone earthquakes and subduction zone in the Burma zone earthquakes. In addition to that, in the intraplate zone, there are gigantic faults and some other tectonic domain like pop-up tectonics of the plateau. So these are the causes of earthquakes in Shillong Plateau.
Sir,
Thank you.
pardon, sir.
Yes.
Sir, actually, my question was, as it is prone to earthquake, the northeastern side, so will the areas which are safer, interconnecting the states or the areas will it be helpful if these areas are connected? So it will be
There is no area which is having no activity in Northeast India. The connecting state or whatever you say, you divide it in the earthquakes do not follow geographical boundaries. So there is no state, no space which is divided, which is safe from earthquakes in Northeast India. Suppose,
sir, if all the states,
yes.
sir, if all the states are interconnected somehow, then will it be some not that much, but will it be some helpful? Means to some extent,
No,
if all the
your states are connected. They are this block. You have divided the whole region into different states, 7 to 8 states, say, suppose. That is your geographical boundary. But below the surface, there is no boundary. It's the earth only. It's the earth crust. So there is no boundary below your surface. So this whole Indian plate is moving to northeast. So the whole Indian plate is moving. It's not on geographical boundary that this state is stable, this state is innocent, I will not move there. It's not like that. No state or no area is safe when the whole plate is moving. You can say there are some active fault in some region. So if an earthquake occurs, say in Shillong Plateau, you will be affected. Tripura or Bangladesh or Jorhat, any surrounding region within 200 kilometers will be much affected. If there is any earthquake, large earthquake on the Kofili fault, all the regions will be affected. So there are some, tectonic source zone or tectonic, say, active zone, but there is no safe zone as such. Your state boundary is for your own administrative, reasons you have made a state boundary. There's geographical boundary. Earth has no geographical boundary. The crust has no geographical boundary. The lithosphere has no geographical boundary. Whole Indian lithosphere is moving. So there is nothing like a safe area or safe state. I don't know whether I could make you understand. So
yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
if all the states are connected and it would be helpful, the whole things are connected. It's a single block, whole Indian plate is moving. Yes.
Okay, sir. Next question from Sachin. Sir, what is the minimum number of stations required for obtaining fault plane station?
A good question. I think on fault plane solution, that will be a separate lecture by Dr. Debojit Harika. But still, we raise the question. I tell you, if you go with the, with the fast motion plot, there are two techniques. One is that we study the ground motion, the fast motion of the seismic waves, that is P wave. So either it can come up or down. So those motions we study, we call it fast motion plot. We plot them on a stereographic projection. It's a method that will be explained by Dr. Hazarika. So that is one way of doing. So doing that, I think no solution should be made by fast motion data less than 25 or so. That's statistically, it has to be some reasonable data to cover the whole area. So minimum 20 to 25 fast motion data should be needed. That means minimum, say 30 stations data by which you can get 20, 25, fast motion nicely read. So for a fast motion plot, you need so many data. But for waveform inversion, I think if you have digital instruments and a very close station in local earthquakes, you want to do the study of fault and solutions. Maybe 10 station data or digital waveform would be fairly enough, and maybe even with 3-4 stations waveform, you can also come out with a reasonable solution. So fault and solution is either by fast motion or by waveform inversion. Nowadays, we are doing by waveform inversion, and that will be a different lecture by Dr. Hazarika.
Thank you, sir. A question from Suri Babu. Himalayan belt is compressive region, then why we are getting normal faults in northern side?
Good question. Yes, northern side means Tibetan Plateau. Actually, when the Indian plate is, gently dipping and the Tibetan plate is overriding, the frontal part is a tremendous, compressional zone, as you all have noticed that in Himalayan main seismic belt is mainly by thrust faulting earthquakes. But the further north, in the Tibetan Plateau, the earthquakes are of normal faulting. There is a east-west extension. Tensional stress is dominant in the Tibetan plate because of the internal tension as well as the crustal flow. The crust flows to the east in the Tibetan side, in the Tibetan eastern part. So the crustal flow also causes a external extension, and also the internal tension also causes the east-west tension. So the east-west tensional stress is dominant. When the tensional stress is dominant and horizontal, that causes normal fault. And that's what happening in the Tibetan plate. Whereas in the main seismic belt, Himalayan seismic belt, here the compressional stress is dominant, and that is horizontal, near horizontal. So when the compressional stress is near horizontal, that causes thrust faulting. That you know from your fault dynamics. When the compressional stress is dominant and horizontal, that causes thrust faulting. And when the tensional stress is horizontal dominant, that causes normal faulting. That is understandable. So tensional stress is dominant in the northern part, in the Tibetan part, and compressional stress is dominant in the Himalayan seismic belt part. And the tensional stress is dominant in the northern part because of the internal tension as well as crustal flow to the eastern side, the Tibetan plate. That is observed by GPS measurement. Yes, any other?
Yes, sir. There is another question from Dr. Dilip Kumar Yadav. Dear sir, what is the depth of earthquake in Eastern Himalaya syntaxis than that of Western Himalayan earthquake?
Well, with the observed data so far, in the western side, the earthquakes are shallower, as you have already seen, including the 2005 Muzaffarabad earthquake. They are of the order of 10 to 20 kilometer depth in the western side. And in the western side, the conceptual seismotectonic model of Seaver fairly works well. But as you come to the eastern side of the Himalayas, say from eastern Nepal to say up to syntaxis zone, this part is I don't think that model is unique for the whole Himalayan region. The eastern part of Himalaya, particularly from Sikkim or eastern Nepal to Sikkim to Bhutan to up to Arunachal, here the earthquakes are not typically of 20 kilometer depth, means 0 to 20. They are down to 60, 70 kilometer depth. So here the different tectonics, and in the syntaxis zone is more complex tectonics, and the earthquakes depth in the eastern part of Himalaya, including the eastern syntaxis, they are down to 60, 70 kilometer depth. So the 1905 earthquake, 1950 earthquake, great earthquake depth was been of the order of 40 kilometers. So here is not typical MHT event, shallow event of at a depth of 20 or 15 kilometers. So the
Thank you.
tectonics is different, I suppose. In the Eastern Himalaya, mostly transverse tectonics. In the Western Himalaya, it is mostly head-on collision or compressional tectonics.
Thank you, sir. Another question from Dr. Dilip Kumar Yadav. What seismotectonic model will you suggest for EHS earthquakes?
For which earthquake?
EHS,
Eastern Himalaya.
Eastern Himalaya.
Which model?
What seismotectonic model will you suggest for Eastern Himalayan earthquakes?
Well, as I already explained that I don't think there is any unique model. Each earthquake is unique in itself. So for the Eastern Himalaya, all known strong or large earthquakes, we find that they are by transverse tectonics, including the Sikkim, very recently 2011 Sikkim earthquake, the Bhutan earthquake, 2009 Bhutan earthquake. So they are all by transverse tectonics. And what I want to say that before the Indian plate came into head-on collision with the Tibetan plate, there exists a mantle leaching fault, and those faults are now getting reactivated. So on the Indian basement, those faults, which are deeper faults, were existing already before the collision. Those faults are now getting reactivated due to collision tectonics in the Himalayan front. So these faults are now getting active. So there is no unique model for whole Himalaya. Broadly, you can say Western Himalaya earthquakes are mostly shallow and by asphalting, but Eastern Himalaya earthquakes are due to transverse structure, at least the known strong earthquakes are by transverse tectonics. They are by the transverse structure to the Himalaya. So model, there is a conceptual model, but that model is not unique for the whole Himalaya. That's what I want to convey the message.
Thank you, sir.
Professor Utpal Basu here. Yes, Professor Utpal Datto. Professor Datta, you want to say something? I want to hear from you, your comments.
I have a question, but before I say that, I am really, really thankful to you because of such a nice presentations. And after a long time, I hear all the seismotectonics, a brief synopsis for the entire country and particularly the Himalayan earthquake and all these things. So that's a thank you for this type of presentation. My question is this, that you are talking about the transverse fault, which are basically in the eastern side, but we also have a similar transverse ridges and faults in the western side, say suppose Delhi Hardwar ridge and all the ridges in the UP Himalayas. Are they not active, or is it not possible that they could generate a big earthquake in a shallow or might be in the deeper areas in the western Himalaya side?
It's a very good question. That transverse structure is not that it is only in the eastern side, but it is also existing in the western Himalaya. You are very much pointed out a very good point. Yes, and that is why in the beginning I said there are so many transverse structures all along the Himalayan belt, and including the Hyderabad ridge, the Delhi Haridwar ridge. These ridges are all covered with the Indo-Gangetic sediments, but they are found by the gravity observations, by gravity map. So these ridges are there, and he said that these ridges are hitting the Himalayan trend, and they are the main, say, another factor for this concentration of stress in the Himalayan belt to generate earthquakes. Now, that is why another reason that these ridges or these transverse structures are not allowing that after all along the, they are stopping. That is why there is a debate. Some people, some seismologists, say that the Himalaya will generate mega earthquake of magnitude 9 and above. That is a bit difficult to understand because for a mega earthquake of magnitude 9, the rupture is of the order of 1,000 kilometers, and Himalayan tectonic setting will not allow the rupture of the order of 1,000 kilometers. So transverse structures are stopping the rupture or propagation. And as well as you say, these transverse structures are also causing the tectonic stress to get accumulated in the plane of detachment. And those structures are also responsible for, for generating earthquakes. But they are not active fault, but they are a gigantic ridge, and they are helping to stress accumulation of the stress, and the earthquakes are occurring on the plane of detachment, which is a seismogenic fault for the earthquakes in western part.
No, but do you have do we have, rather not you, but do we have a evidence, instrumental seismology, that these ridges are not active, or these are not active faults, or anything is not going on underneath the stress of this, that this fault could have been getting active in future? This type of transverse fault.
You mean in the 4D region, the south of
right, in
yes,
the 4D
yes,
region, in the 4D region, in the 4D
region. You mean to say that in 4D we have got transverse structures, whether these transverse structures can generate earthquake
right.
in the 4D region? Yes,
right.
That is happening in Delhi. That is
right
happening
in the Delhi, yeah.
Yes, that is happening in Delhi. That Delhi ridge is the source zone for the Delhi local earthquakes, and they are, of course, interpret earthquakes.
Right.
So in the away, about 300 to 400 kilometers away from the plate collision zone, so they are interpret earthquakes. That is why Delhi is is one of the example of your question, that these are also causing earthquakes, as for example in Delhi. Similarly, from GSI, we investigated one area in Bihar, because Bihar had such a high intensity for the 1934 earthquake. There was some tectonic activity, there was some hot spring activity. So our GSI geologist thought that this Munger area, Munger Sahasari area, will be a next earthquake zone or whatever. So we made a survey, micro earthquake monitoring, and we found that yes, the eastern boundary of the Munger Sahasari is seismically active. Yes, it is generating lower magnitude earthquakes, 3 or 2.5, 3, 3.5. By micro earthquake instruments, we recorded those earthquakes. So yes, some of these ridges are, as for example, Delhi Haridwar ridge, also observed in the Munger Sahasaris, which is generating smaller earthquakes. But whether it will generate a great earthquake, larger earthquake, that time will say. But since it is away from the direct head-on collision, the tectonic stress from the north is coming, so it's in intraplate region. So we assume that magnitude 5.5 or 6.6, 6.5 earthquakes cannot be ruled out. These structures may generate such type of earthquakes as it is generating in Delhi region by the Delhi Haridwar ridge. Yes, these can be also seismogenic in your works. Yeah.
No, basically, I asked this question because in Alaska we have this type of evidence, because that Denali earthquake in Alaska, which is a stable continental type of earthquake once upon a time in the 2002. So before that, there is a 3 to 4 magnitude earthquake, and then one fine morning it was basically 7.2 magnitude earthquake, and it is a very shallow.
Yes.
And it has created a lot of devastation. But fortunately, that area is not a very occupied. So in terms of hazard, it is not big. But this earthquake has been generated 7.9 magnitude. So that's why I was trying to understand that this could be also the same thing, that we cannot see it now, or might be very, very small activity, say 5 or 4 or 5, but once upon a time it might be in a fine morning. It could have been generated a big magnitude earthquake.
Yes, yes, I will not be surprised.
Right.
Yeah, yes. Thank you for raising a very good point. Yes, this test can also, but we won't expect a magnitude, great earthquake, but definitely 6.5 or
6.5
in the intraplate zone could be. Yes, that could happen. Yes, as it is happening in Delhi region.
Right.
Thank you so much for joining us from Alaska. It's a short time for you, but still have joined. Thank you.
No, it is already late. It is at 10 o'clock in the night, so that's.
Oh my
Thank
goodness!
You
Yes. Sorry. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Sir, another question from Kosijin. Sir,
Yes.
please suggest me a good book to understand the beach ball theory, as we civil engineers sometimes fail to understand it. If possible, please make a tutorial video.
It's a very good question, and I forgot to show one slide. I did not make it. No, I never showed it. But to be very honest, I have tried to make it very clear, even for a non-seismologist, to do fault plane solution, to understand fault plane solution in my book. My book name is Microearthquake Seismology and Seismotectonics of South Asia. This is my lifetime work. I published it in 2008. Springer published it. So they are almost like a manual. I have explained how to go ahead to understand or to determine fault plane solution. So that chapter 4 of my book, it is now available online, of cost, I suppose. If not, you can always email me, I can send my copy. So soft copy is available in the website. It is by J.R. Kayal, Microearthquake Seismology and Seismotectonics of South Asia. You can catch hold of this book, you can download this book, and if you want to really understand the fault plane solution, even from the fault dynamics to fault plane solutions, you can take help of this book. And I think chapter 4 I have fully devoted for this fault plane solution to understand.
I can add one point here, because
Yes.
since I am teaching to the civil engineering department all the seismology and all these things. So I am very well understood this question, and this question is very, very relevant for the civil engineering student, because they often ask this, that what are these type of beach balls and what are these type of things. And I can reassure Dr. Kayal's comment that Dr. Kayal's book is one of the very good resource to understand. Not only for the geoscientists like me, we understood this thing because it was being told from my graduation time, but for a civil engineer to understand this, if you can go through the Dr. Kayal's book, I think it is a very well explained, and this is done very nicely with a manual. Everything is being, and then also you need to do it one by hand, because if you can do it one by hand of this type of beach ball solution, I think you can understand. And I think Professor Raghukant, in his engineering seismology YouTube video, he has also shown some of the fault plane solution, which you can see these YouTube videos, and I think you can understand very nicely.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you. I really appreciate your appreciation.
No, that's okay. That's very good thing.
Thank you.
For a non-technical people, your book helps a lot.
To be very frank, Professor Datta, maybe in your time you have read seismology. In my time, we did not read seismology in our geophysics department. We were taught the seismic perspective. So when I started doing this seismology, based in seismology, I had to start from the scratch. So that is I have written from the scratch to one can understand fault plane solution.
No, during my PhD time, I worked with the aeromagnetic anomaly data. So basically, I didn't do the PhD in the seismology, but after that, I switched to the seismology with Professor Verma at that time, and then he taught me the entire seismotectonics and all these fault plane solutions. So I understand from there. So I learned also by myself with the help of Professor Verma at the time.
Thank you so much. So nice to meet you. Thank you so much for that. Yes, we are in touch and we'll be in touch.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you, sir. Another question from Saptashwara Guha. As earthquake is a natural process and have effects on underground flow of water, oil, and natural gas, application of any kind of artificial techniques, if applied for reducing earthquakes, will it hamper the process?
It's a very good question, but not to stop. Yes, but we can monitor. Yes, it's very good question. You see, these are called. If it is Saptaswara, I think yes, you will be studying this in your second semester. These earthquakes we called, man-made earthquakes, anthropogenic earthquakes, or induced earthquakes. Say by oil production, we are causing disbalance, and also by secondary oil production, we call it early recovery. So for secondary oil recovery, we inject fluid into the borehole to generate some cracks in the reservoir for flow of oil, and so that we can do more production. So those type of anthropogenic acts, like secondary production of oil, or by mining industries. So these are causing some earthquakes. We call it micro earthquakes. So these earthquakes are monitored by this micro earthquake technique seismology. So we can monitor those earthquakes which are being made by such type of activities. But these activities will not cause to stop big earthquake or large earthquakes in a seismically prone zone, because these are very smaller earthquakes, and there is no way to stop large earthquakes in a prone zone, which is vulnerable for generating large earthquake. That earthquake cannot be stopped by by man-made activity, or by even by drilling and injecting something to release the stress. No, because I tell you my experience. In Bhuj earthquake, it was magnitude 7.7, and within 3 months, we recorded some 6,000 aftershocks of magnitude 2 to 5, 2 to 4.5, 5 up to 5 out 5.5. So mostly magnitude 2 and within 4. So some 6,000 earthquakes we recorded aftershocks in 3 months, and we calculated the energy release of 6,000 aftershocks, and we calculated the energy release by the main shock of magnitude 7.7. The aftershocks, the energy release was not even 10% of main shock. What I want to say, I will teach you in your second semester, that earthquake magnitude and energies goes in power law. The earthquake of magnitude 8 is equivalent to of 30 or 32 earthquakes of magnitude 7 at a time. 9 is also like that. It is equivalent to 32 earthquakes of magnitude 8 at a time. So it goes in power law. So the tectonic state or the energy of a large earthquake, cannot be artificially reduced. You can delay it, but you cannot stop it. And we cannot stop the natural, process of being, having great earthquakes. So by this water injection or by these mining processes, there would be some micro tremors. You can record that. You can understand how the cracks are developed and how you should take, your mining planning or oil production planning. All these things, they are good. This is good tool. Even in the exploration, now we are using it in oil industry, in mining industry. But these earthquakes definitely cannot, take the or release the energy release, which is due for a large great earthquakes or 7 earthquakes or magnitude 8 earthquakes or 9 earthquakes. The energy is so much, it goes in power. So yes, we can monitor the micro earthquakes for exploration, for oil production, for groundwater flow, for gas flow, all these things. But these will not stop the big earthquake from the big earthquake source zone. Is any other question?
Yes, sir. Another question is
Yes.
seismotectonic point of view, how we can differentiate Himalayan belt with Kutch region?
Very good question. Yes, your question is very, very good. In the Himalaya region, where direct head-on collision is there, we are getting large earthquakes and great earthquakes. How come this intraplate region in the Kutch or the intraplate region in Shillong, they are also generating earthquakes, large earthquakes like magnitude 7, 7.7 or 8 even. These are two very, you can say very uncommon, I should not say abnormal, I should say uncommon region where from we are getting is something like that of Madrid earthquake source in USA. They are intraplate earthquake. Normally intraplate earthquake is of the order of magnitude 6.5, 6 to 6.5, like Koina, like Jabalpur, like Kilari. But the intraplate earthquake in Kutch Rift is such a large earthquake. Yes, the Himalayan earthquakes are due to collision tectonics because of head-on collision, but the Kutch Rift earthquakes are different. They are intraplate earthquakes, but they are not typically intraplate earthquakes. They are rift basin earthquakes and by inversion tectonics. The Kutch Rift was formed due to plate movement. Indian plate is moving and there is internal tension, which caused this rift zone. The block has gone down and it's a big rift zone is formed. And now the rift, which was formed by internal tension due to the plate movement in the geological past, some 50 million years ago, now those rifts, now because of the head-on collision of the Indian plate and the Eurasian plate, the tectonic stress is now, the compressional stress is transmitted to the Kutch Rift zone, and now that region is, that rift zone is now under compressional stress. So we call it inversion tectonics, means the rift was formed by tensional tectonics. Now that rift, Kutch Rift or Narmada Rift, both the rift zones are now experiencing earthquakes by compressional tectonics. It's a very good question. So that is why we get earthquakes in the rift zone. These earthquakes are not typical, shield earthquakes like shallow depth, like Koina, like Kilari, at a depth of 6 kilometers or 7 kilometers. These earthquakes in the Kilari, in the Kutch Rift, are of the order of 20 to 25 kilometer depth. And in Jabalpur, that 1997 Jabalpur earthquake was at a depth of 35 kilometers, almost at the mantle depth. So the difference is Himalayan earthquakes. The main first difference is Himalayan earthquakes are due to direct head-on collision of the Indian plate and Eurasian plate, and they are by compressional stress in the collision zone and by thrust fault. And the Kutch Rift basin earthquakes, or even the Narmada Rift basin earthquake, Jabalpur earthquake, or the 2001 Bhuj earthquake, these are thrust faulting earthquakes, or so to say reverse faulting, means the steep angle. These are also thrust faulting earthquakes, but they are not like Himalayan, thrust faulting earthquakes means not that earthquakes, the fault plane is gently leaving along the MHT. MHT is of the order of 10 to 15 degree deep, but the thrust plane, the positive fault plane in the Narmada Reed Basin or in the Karst Reed Basin in Bhuj, the fault plane dips more than 60, 70 degree. So they are reverse faulting. So both the earthquakes in the Himalayan zone, thrust faulting or by compressional stress, and the Reed Basin earthquakes are also by compressional stress. But the difference is the Reed Basin zone earthquakes are now by inversion tectonics, and the faulting are not gently dipping like Himalayan earthquakes, MHT 10 degree or 15 degree. The fault planes are dipping, down to about 70 degree deep. So they are reverse faulting, not typical thrust faulting. They are, reverse faulting earthquakes. So that is the difference. Inversion tectonics and reverse faulting earthquakes in the Reed Basins, and the Himalaya, the typical collision tectonics and gentle dipping thrust faulting earthquakes at the MHT. That's the difference between Karst Reed Basin earthquakes and the Himalayan thrust earthquakes. I think I could explain your question.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I request Dr. Shima Ghosh ma'am to say something on concluding remark. Ma'am, please.
So thank you, sir, for your nice presentation and thereafter nice explanation. My special thanks to our Utpal sir, sir, please. I think at your time location, it is near about 10:30 or something like that. Even then you are giving the time. So sir, we will keep in touch with you, and we will take your suggestions for our works in our Northeast India.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank
Sure,
you, sir.
sure.
Over to Pritha.
Thank you, ma'am. Now we want to convey our small token of love from the students of Techno College of Engineering, Agartala, to our guest, J.R. Kayal, sir.
Yes, it's nice. It's nice, I know. Wonderful, you have done a wonderful job. Thank you so much, my dear student. Hope to see you sometime. It is a really good job you have done. Professor Tato, can you see what he has done?
Yeah. It is amazing. It's amazing.
He is giving this portrait to every speaker, and
right.
You have done a very good job.
Right, I have seen that.
I really appreciate.
Yeah.
This is real JR here.
Right.
Better than my photograph. Thank you so much. Thank you all. See you in the evening. See you.
Actually,
Sir,
sir, we thought, actually, we thought, first of all, we thought that we will give a young picture. I have got a picture of your, means approximately 30 to 40 years. Yeah, your picture. So we thought that then things, it will not be good. So I will give you a present picture. One picture is there in the internet of your 30
I have
to
not
40
become
years.
old now. Don't make me an old man so quickly.
I think it will be very much interesting if you give that picture also.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you, Avik. Thank you so much. Professor Dutt, thank you so much for interacting. Thank you so much. We really discussed more because of your Thank you so much. See you again. See you.
Yeah.
Now I would like to request J.R. Kayal, sir, to grant me the permission for concluding today's session.
Please. This chairperson permission, not mine.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Vidha. You have done a
sir.
good job.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Bye, sir.
Thank you.
We will start our 6th technical session today at 7 p.m. So we will join with the same link by 6:45 p.m. for 6th technical session by Professor Dr. Rajiv Shah from NIT Agartala. Stay tuned, stay safe. Thank you all.
Thank you, Vidha. Wonderful. You are doing so well. Thanks so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you,
ma'am.
Pritha.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
It was a well long discussion. I enjoyed it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, so
He is doing well. ASSHEE is really stimulating for all of us.
sir.
Yes.
So we are meeting once again, sir.
Yes, we are meeting.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Bye, sir.